بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نحمده ونصلي ونسلم على رسوله الكريم أما بعد. The next chapter, باب جزاء الوالدين, the chapter of repaying one's parents. عن أبي هريرة رضي الله تعالى عنه عن النبي صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم قال: لا يجزي ولد والديه إلا أن يجده مملوكا فيشتريه فيعتقه. Abū Hurayrah radiallahu ta'ala narrates from the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, who said, a child cannot repay his parents unless he finds one of them as a slave, then purchases him and sets him free. Okay. So in this chapter, Imam Bukhari rahmatullahi alayhi, up until now, the importance of obedience and the worrying notion of disobedience has been continuously stressed. In this chapter, Imam Bukhari rahmatullahi alayhi, he addresses a hadith in which presumably or apparently Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam is giving us the method of repayment of the rights of the parent. So number one, the concept why, if we take the hadith as, or the chapter for face value, that this is the method of repaying one's parents, why is this particular procedure, meaning freeing of the parent, so why is that the way that you can repay the debt of the parents' rights? And so the ulama, they write that from any favor that you can do to anybody in terms of their life in this world, there is no greater good that you can do for them than if someone is a slave, that you've set them free, because they are living a life in which they are bound by other people's rules. Okay, so they, as a slave, you have limited freedom. Okay, in terms of your rights, in terms of your possessions, in terms of when you work, how you work, etc. So of the favors that you can do for anybody, one of the greatest favors that you can do is that set them free, so they're no longer living that life as a slave. Second, which many ulama they opine, is that the Prophet ﷺ is not telling us that this is the method for the sake of providing a way of repaying your debt. But the Prophet ﷺ is setting a scenario that's very difficult to picture. Meaning, the chance that you find as a child your own parent as a slave is near impossible. So the point that the Prophet ﷺ is trying to make is that it's almost impossible for you to repay the payment of or repay the favors of your parent, because this one scenario is not an everyday scenario. In fact, it's such a rare occurrence that most likely a person will never ever experience that. So we'll take, for example, our own situation. Who in the world today can claim that I will find my parent as a slave and free them? So literally, from today's perspective, where the concept of slavery is no longer even existent, it's an impossible task. If you take this hadith for face value and say, this is the way that I can repay my parents, it is impossible for anybody else any of us to do that, because you'll never find your parents as a slave. It's not possible. A free person cannot be made a slave in Islam. So a child will never find that their parent is a slave in order for them to free them. So the stress of the hadith is to try to show that this concept of me repaying the favors of my parent is not really a possible thing. It's not something that I can actually do. And you lean on the hadith that we mentioned earlier. Imam Bukhari rahmatullahi alayhi, he's the one that relates the hadith in his book Al-Adab al-Mufrad, in which Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhuma is performing the circumambulation, the tawaf of the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and there's a person who's carrying his elderly mother on his back doing the tawaf. And after completing the tawaf, he approaches Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhuma, and he says that I have performed the entirety, not just the tawaf, all of the rituals of the ihram with my mother on my back. Have I fulfilled my rights or her her rights upon me, have I fulfilled them or not? And Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu ta'ala responded, La wala bi zafratin wahidatin, not even one pang of labor. Forget about the entirety of the rights, forget about the pregnancy, forget about the after, postnatal, the different responsibilities and that the mother undertakes. You have not fulfilled, you've not even given back that right of one pang of labor. So everything else is extra. So we learn from this that the concept of repaying one's favors of one's parents is an impossible task. And so what this Sharia stresses is that it should be a lifelong thing to understand that the favors of my parent upon me are great, and I need to repay. I need to make an attempt to show that I'm appreciative of that, because you can't repay. So at least I need to make the attempt to show that I am appreciative of the favors of my parent upon me, and I'm dutiful because of that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant me the understanding, all of you the understanding, that this bounty and this ni'mah that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed us with, if our parents are still alive, Allah allow us the ability to appreciate that ni'mah, that bounty. And there's a chapter inside there which tells us, maybe I skip a few chapters and we speak about that, where one of the easiest methods of attaining Jannah is through one's parents. And the Prophet ﷺ has hinted to the fact that if you have parents that are elderly and you are not able to attain your Jannah, then your state is very deplorable. It's a pity. It's a sad situation, because Allah has made it so easy through that avenue, and if you're still unable to do it, then you're in a deplorable and pitiful state. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wills, inshallah, we'll carry on with that tomorrow. Allah grant me the understanding, all of you the understanding. Wa akhiru da'wan, alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Subhanallah bihamdi, subhanakallahumma bihamdik. Nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Jazakumullah khairan.